the sweet young thing? What is the usual draw there?
Well, some are romantic draws, some are affection draws, some are companionship draws, and some are actually the fix it guy. Whether it's the mechanic, the landscaper, the handyman, they all end up moving in.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. You mentioned sort of these three scenarios. We talked a little bit about the idea of the match.com as being one entry point. Do you see any sort of trend as to other entry points that folks kind of get in, to sort of start this process?
Absolutely. Well, what I see in my practice is that elders who are living independently need help, and they need more help than they want to tell their families or loved ones about. Elders are desperately trying to hold on to their independence at any cost. And there are predators who know this, and they prey on elders living alone and needing help. And there's an obvious sign. Let's say the landscaping is falling apart. Let's say there's, deferred maintenance on the outside of the house. And all of a sudden, they just weasel their way in. It might also be something like a traveling mechanic or a traveling handyman.
Right, right. That makes sense. So the elders are asking people for help because they'd rather not burden their family and they know they need the help, but they don't really want to admit it. And then that opens the door for a lot of folks to potentially come in that may, unfortunately, some not have the best interests of the elders at heart. Okay, that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I'm talking about cases where a conservatorship is warranted
Right.
because the elder needs protection for their entire life. There's also a whole category of scams: predatory lending, annuity scams, financial scams. That's a whole other flavor. And those elders may or may not need to be conserved. But typically, those cases are litigated only in civil court and they don't make it to conservatorship.
Right. And again, even those, it could be the same scenario where people need help and they rely on outside sources. And then unfortunately, they may not be getting the best advice from those folks. As an aside, as it relates to real estate, I often am involved in selling a home either after someone's moved to senior living or, been conserved or has passed away. And I will, even on the house, find all these liens for things, for instance, solar systems that the person was 85 when they took a 35-year lease on a solar system, and you wonder, well, why did the solar company do this? And frankly, they saw an opportunity there. So it is very common, I see, in the real estate piece as well. So Liza, what are some for family members and other folks that are looking on, what are some of the earliest red flags that maybe something isn't right around a senior's decisions, whether it relates to their property or other things? That what are the red flags that people should be looking out for when they care about an elder?
There are several potential red flags when you care about a loved one but are concerned about their well being, whether it's financial or personal. One red flag is that the elder is just not as with it as they always were. And the elder's going to mask that, but it comes up where the elder will tell the same story. The elder will ask the same question, or the elder will be very confidential about matters that used to not be something confidential. What's hardest is when the elder has always been very private, so the children have no idea what the elder's financial situation is. It's really important if one spouse passes away for the children or the loved ones of the elder to circle the elder with love and care and get in their business, because that is a very vulnerable elder to financial abuse. And if the loved ones or children can somehow either review statements monthly with the elder, or if they can possibly get themselves named on the statements so they have access to them online, that would be best. So, red flags for elders is when you go to their home and you see that they have a pile of unopened mail. Unopened mail suggests unattended to business. Some ways that children or loved ones of elders can jump in would be to get a springing power of attorney. So right away, they can start talking to the institutions, get a credit report, and most importantly, where it relates to real estate, monitor whatever has been recorded and review what's been recorded to date against all real property.
I think as a follow-on to what you just said, one of the things that is, very clear to me, and I think a lot of other folks who have very strong, independent parents as we all age and they're aging, is that a lot of these elders, they don't want you in their business, and they're gonna fight like hell to not have you in their business because it is a sign that they are not as independent as they were before. So, how can families approach that in a way that maybe can bring them on board slowly without creating a big rift in the family?
That is a trick.
Right,
And it's all about relationship. And the relationship may not be between you, the family member, and the elder. It may be that you need a third person in the middle. It may be that the elder would prefer to work with a non family member to say, pay bill or make sure they're not getting ripped off. One of the reasons the Elder Abuse and Dependent Adult Civil Protection Act was passed in California was to recognize that elders' brains change as they age. After 65, elders are almost a protected class in California. It's as if they are a civil rights protected class. And the reason is because of the physiology of their brain changes. So play to it. If their brain changes so they don't want to get taken advantage of, well, then use that to make sure you protect them in whatever way you can.
and I love your idea about the idea of possibly introducing third parties if that's gonna work better because, A, that may be a way to keep them still feeling independent and not, creating as much of a rift between family members. I kind of liken it to, we have a teenage son, and he doesn't particularly want my advice right now, you know? And but if a third party, somebody who's sort of a peer, mentor, or authority gives guidance, he's a lot more open to it. So I think that same analogy can apply in this situation. So thank you for that. And I know that wasn't really a legal question as much as a psychology question, but I think your experience is really valuable in pointing that out. So to drill down a little bit more on undue influence and real estate in specific, in some of the cases you've been involved in or that you see out there, when does a real estate transaction of any kind cross the line into undue influence? Where do you see most of that taking place?
There are several settings where I see real estate becoming an issue, colliding with undue influence and fraud. One is to encumber the real estate. So, family members want to get loans or otherwise use the real estate for their own personal benefit. So, they convince mom or dad to sign all these loan documents to encumber the property and yet follow the money. Who gets that money? It's the person who's got his hand in the cookie jar.
Right. So in that scenario, you're saying that the son, daughter, somebody gets the mom to take out a loan on the property. This could be just a cash out refinance. It could also be a reverse mortgage, right? And then suddenly there's a pile of
Yes.
cash, which then is potentially absconded with or something like that.
Absolutely. Follow the money. And when you've asked about, well, what is undue influence? What is the definition of undue influence? Undue influence is persuasion upon another that leads to a result that did not reflect the principal or the elder's true intent. If they had known the truth, they wouldn't have acted in this way. Now, that may be if they had the capacity to understand the nature of the transaction they were engaging in, that would be incapacity meets undue influence. It could be if they've been provided with materially false information about the transaction. That is fraud meets undue influence. And then, of course, undue influence is sinister because a lot of times the influence that is undue is welcomed by the lonely or misunderstood elder. And that's what's really tricky.
Would a scenario in that last piece be something like, "Look, I wanted to give my daughter the money that I took out of the house because she needed it for something, but unfortunately."
It could be,
Okay,
or it could be. I intend to give this third party blah, blah, blah. It could be a house. If only they'll keep me independent in my house by making sure I never go to a nursing home. And again, it's the fraud of your children are going to put you in a nursing home if you let them know about your finances.
So yeah, it'd be sort of a quid pro quo with a carrot at the end of that stick there. Yeah. What are some other scenarios in addition to this scenario where the property is encumbered that you see undue influence in sort of real estate transactions taking place?
There are a lot of other scenarios involving real estate and undue influence. One is where the elder is misunderstanding how the estate planning process works. And so they may have a property intended for, say, a family member for 5 decades. And then the predatory person comes in at the end of the elder's life when the elder is diminished capacity and highly susceptible to undue influence because they can't parse out what's true and what's not true. And that's when oftentimes the predator will take the elder to an estate planning attorney to make changes to their estate plan so that they, the predator, becomes the recipient after death of the real property.